Good morning. Denise Dryden here. I'm out on Bainbridge Island, and I've got Donna Britt with me. And Donna and I worked together for 7 years on a radio cast. We raised our kids together in Bend, Oregon. And you came up to visit, and we're sitting in front of this amazing old tree that I do every so often when I do these podcasts or
really
these
is
videos.
amazing.
Isn't it wonderful?
And in the background, you can hear my 2-year-old chocolate Labrador Retriever, Gus. He wants to participate.
He is not happy about being here in the car.
Because he can hear us, but he can't be watching.
It's helpful when you get a phone call in the middle. It's like we're just challenging. This is kind of what our life looked like. We raised 5 millennials between the two of us, and between dogs and kids and everything, it's just like, wow! So now we get to practice, of course, doing this live.
Now we get to breathe a sigh of relief. No, it never ends.
Because we're older, our kids are raised, and now we get to talk about them, right?
Yes.
So I want to talk about the gifts of the millennials. And the millennials, we've talked about different generations, and the millennials, you know, they've taken a lot of hits, and I think they're like my favorite generation, so I want to talk about them a lot today, sort of explore who they are. When I go to the definition of a millennial, they come into adulthood at the early turn of the 21st century. So they were born like 1980 to 2000 if you want to go really big, or you can go specifically 81 to 96. So it means they're like 23 to 38. Some are in the early to mid stages of parenting. Some are just getting out of college and figuring out what they'll do with their life.
Yeah, I actually work at a television station with mostly millennials, and it's their first broadcasting job out of school, and they're awesome. But and I think it helped me that I have children their age, because it helps me understand a little bit more of their communication style and their needs and their wants. And it's been really interesting for me, and it's been a blessing, I guess you might say. I've learned a lot, let me put it that way.
Well, exactly. and I like that you have front and hands-on on what it's been like to sort of watch their creativity.
Sure.
Because out of everything that I would say is that millennials have this sort of non-linear creative sense of being, which means that the way that they went through school systems, the way that they go through relationships now, the way they've been in the workforce. I had a colleague of mine say that, you know, one of her biggest challenges was working with millennials because they don't care. And I was like,
No, I don't think it's that at all. What it is that they're not going to play by the old rules.
They don't want tradition.
They don't. And I can think, wow, when I was their age, I was keeping my mouth shut and doing this, that, and the other. Well, that's just not who they are.
They can't do it.
They can't do it. And so I think that once you lose that expectation and accept that, oh, they're different, and not different in a negative way, just different, and you can look at it like, well, what are they really trying to tell me here? What are they saying? How do you motivate them and get them excited about what they're doing and fuel their passion? And it's not by fear and intimidation.
Well, and it's also not by, I've earned the right to move up this ladder to be your boss. You know, what I was able to sort of translate is they're vibrational beings.
Yes.
They're kinesthetic. So they feel things in their body, and they're the first generation in this, you know, we're talking 20th century to now, where they actually feel either in line with their environment or they feel out of connection, and it feels dissonant. And if it feels dissonant, there's nothing they can do to be there.
They're out, and they can't always articulate it. And I think my generation and my management style or leadership style, I have always thought that people could articulate what was going on, but they can't always articulate
Because you're a baby boomer.
Right?
Baby boomers are articulators.
We talk a lot.
We do the words.
And so when they can't do the words, they're just going like, You know, at first I thought, are you being a baby or a brat? What's going on here? I mean, I'm just telling it like it is.
It's perfect.
But then I realized that no, they just don't feel right, and that's important. Like, they're listening to something that the rest of us sometimes have trouble listening to.
Exactly, and they're also listening to what the flow is, and when they give you a recommendation, it's spot on. It is spot on. But if you try to force them to do something that they don't feel in alignment with, you get crappy work, or you get someone who quits.
They can't do it.
I can't do this.
They refuse to do it. I thought at first it was insubordinate. I'm going to use some old-fashioned words. And I thought, what do you mean I would hear them talking back to the news director saying, I don't want to do that. And I thought, what do you mean you don't want to do that?
Who said you don't get to do that?
What? You don't have a choice. And then I realized, oh, wait a second. What is really happening here is they're saying that they're not aligned with that. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't resonate. Okay. And then that reframes the conversation.
And it doesn't resonate with the audience. It doesn't resonate with the project. And 9 times out of 10, when you go against what a millennial's gut feeling is, it's not successful.
Correct.
I mean, that's the part that's sort of an interesting thing, is that they have this reputation of being sort of overparented, overpampered. And I thought, the reason I wanted to talk about millennials today was that they were raised by the late stage baby boomers like you and I, and then also the entire Generation Xers. And so what we have, especially in the Generation X, is this compensatory, which was, oh man, things have been bad, so I'm just going to make it easy for you. Number one.
Oh, yeah.
Number two, when you have a vibrational kid that goes through a kindergarten through 12 public school that doesn't understand vibrational kids, they don't do well.
No,
the teachers don't know what to do with them. Everything.
They're not really going to sit there and do rote things.
They're not going to do rote things,
but they're smart.
they're high intelligent. They're intuitive. They remember things, and they're nonlinear. And their verbal skills aren't their highest. They're not going to listen to. I should say their verbal skills they're very articulate. They have high verbal skills, but their ability to listen to lectures and bring in auditory. I remember a couple of times having auditory processing as a diagnosis that they don't know how to hear. And they had I had my kids tested. They tested their hearing to see if there was something wrong with their hearing. I was like, no, you just aren't a really good vehicle for them to learn through.
Right.
And that was hard in a public school system to find out that my kid can learn, but just not from you. Or my kid can work, but not from you. And then there's this parent involvement, which is you have to go in and translate, because we were surprised when we had these kids and how to navigate. This is what they need. This is why they need this. This is how it helps. This is how it doesn't help. And the school's like, you are a helicopter mom and you don't stop.
Buzz off. And I think too, then there's that line between when you needed to advocate and when you did need to step out. And I know for me, I was very overprotective for valid reasons. I mean, I'm just saying, but very overprotective and wanting to probably advocate too much. Do you know what I mean?
Well, it instigated our controlling side, which is, this is not working, so we have to jump in.
Out of fear and wanting everything to be okay for them.
Yeah. So, there is a reason for the parent over-involvement, and there is also a line where you cross over too far, right? Let's see. You and I
Did I get you off track? Sorry.
Get me off track.
I thought that was my job. We're talking about the gifts of the millennials.
We are. I wanted to lay in the one concept that you and I talked about beforehand, which is they're pod kids, which means that they trust each other. They trust friends more than they trust adults in their world. They really love their parents because their parents are navigators for them. They get frustrated, especially when parents try to, read books and then try to lay in some old discipline or some old habits. But they're cross-generational, and they blend. It doesn't matter if it's male, female, what color you are, what gender you are. They just like their people, and when they bond with their people, they understand that. So there's a reason for that. I call them pod kids. They started out in nursery schools or preschools or daycare or after school.
They were like
programs.
raised in pods, in groups, which is really kind of a new concept in the course of history. So not just by mom or the household, but in groups, clumps, going from place to place in a group.
Well, it's sort of like the new version of a village. When we all went back to work or we had to get help with our kids, it was, here's 6 to 8 kids. You guys all go do this together. Then you all go play soccer together. Then you all go to Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts, or then you all go to dance and you all go do this. And in their world, they have, these are the adults. And there's an adult that wakes me up, an adult that picks me up and takes me here. There's an adult at school, there's an adult in the afternoon. And so they're used to a lot of people talking to them. And they feel very egalitarian, very equal to that.
Right.
So when an adult says, because I said so, they're like, no.
Because they know lots of adults, and like you said, egalitarian. So not this, this is the person who's speaking, and I have to do exactly what they say.
Well, and they can't. because they're used to saying, well, I have a thought about that. I have an idea, let's do it this way. And it's some old-fashioned sort of linear thinker, and they're like, I didn't ask you. And they're like, yeah, but it's valid. It makes sense. And it's intelligent, and it will work.
Yes, and I think it's important, and again, I think it's important to support that concept of collaboration. Now, not to the point where it's
we're not indulging. We're just saying, how do we learn collaboration? And that's where I want to go, which is this is the first generation on our planet that came in to collaborate. So they're blenders. They trust. They like people. They get to know people. They when they're open and they can pay attention. And they're not agitated by a negative environment, they are creators. They're adapters.
Very much so.
So they take traditional things like, our overschedules and our color coding on the refrigerator and all of those things that mothers and fathers did to sort of help out, because they don't do linear planning either. So they look like millennials will often have missing executive functioning skills because they are circular.
Here's the problem. They don't have a planner like they're supposed to. This is what I had to learn too. Because I'll say, well, write it. Oh, I missed the such and such. I'm like, how do you miss something? And it's because they organize themselves in a different way.
Right.
And it's hard not to be judgmental because, I'm thinking like, well, you write it down and you put it in your phone and you have this, that. But it's a different way. And
yes.
And I've had to learn not to be judgmental of that.
Well, and to find creative ways to inspire, which is, what does that circular feeling look like and feel like, and how do I grab it, hold of it, and guide it, or give you some tools, or work with you, because I have to stretch too.
Right.
And so the analogy that I liked was that, they're like, I'm my little prop here. They're like crystal. Well, I like the idea that they're also deeply embedded with the crystal energy.
You have to hold that up because it's so beautiful. I want everybody to see it.
So this is a crystal, and it's
pretty.
Multifaceted. And when we think of millennials and we think of crystals, what we want to do is imagine water and how water can run fast. It can drip. It can take a form of a lake. It can take ocean and waves. It can be a waterfall. It can be frozen.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, whatever pathway water takes, you can't hold it. You can't try to shape it unless you freeze it, and then it will still melt as soon as it gets warm. But it's multifaceted, and it sparkles wherever you put it. So we have creative, unconditional love beings that are trying to figure out how, as a kinesthetic, emotional learner, do I work in a world that's linear and mental sort of brain-based. Mm-hmm. And they're the adapters. They're the changers. They're the ones who are going to take us into the connection between mind and body, because their body is what talks to them as kinesthetics. Mm-hmm. So they're embodiers. And they love technology, so they use all the tools that are available, but they use them for what they want to do, which is, how do you use, now let's get Uber to deliver food, because it's kind of a hassle to get back in the car and go down and get takeout. There's the Uber system, there's the Airbnb. I mean, these little apps that are problem solvers are all millennial creations. It's fabulous.
It's amazing.
So they give their respect when it's earned. They hold the vibration of love and creativity. They will open up when you meet them with your heart in an authentic way. And that's the part that I've loved the most about young adults. You've known this. I will find a young adult in a coffee shop. I'll make best friends with the barista.
And I'm still just trying to navigate how to get along with my children, which I'm doing better.
Well, my children sort of get frustrated because no matter who they bring home, I end up loving and talking to their friends, and they're like, don't bring mom. Don't bring your friends home. They'll love your mother and my mother, and then they won't. Like, they'll just want to come over to talk to mom.
They'll be your friend instead.
Yeah. So I hope that you got an idea of what Donna and I can do, because when we can get on a microphone or a video, we can just chat it up. And I wanted to make sure that she was here and we got to share a little bit more about the millennials. And Gus is back there just having a little
cheering us on. Thanks for your patience on that.
Yeah. So there's going to be more on millennials as the weeks come, because as you've noticed in my work, I'm starting to pull generational mindsets and then what we need to shift in order to move forward. So today was a good start, and I got to do it with Donna.
Good work. Good job.
Thank you so much. Have a great Sunday. And if you want more information about me or what I do, you can always find me on DeniseDrydenCoaching.com. And thank you, guys. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.